Brielle Thompson stood in the doorway of her own bedroom, her hand gripping the door frame so tightly her knuckles had gone pale. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she watched her husband Trevor lying in their bed with Vanessa Cole, a woman who had been in their wedding party just 3 years ago. They were not asleep. They were not quiet. They were laughing, Vanessa's head thrown back against Brielle's pillows, Trevor's arm draped possessively around her waist. "She actually believed you had that conference call," Vanessa said, her voice carrying easily to where Brielle stood hidden in the hallway. "God, Trevor, she's so trusting it's almost sad." "Brielle sees what she wants to see," Trevor replied, and Brielle heard the dismissive tone she'd been trying to ignore for months. "She's so focused on making everyone else happy that she never questions anything. It makes things easy." "When are you going to tell her?" Vanessa asked. "Why would I?" Trevor's laugh made Brielle's stomach turn. "I have everything I need. Brielle handles the house, the social obligations, keeps up appearances. You and I can have our fun, and once we get that investment capital from her trust fund next month, we can start our business. By the time she realizes what's happening, it'll be too late." Brielle had heard enough. She stepped backward slowly, each movement careful and silent. Her lawyer training from years ago kicked in, the part of her brain that dealt with evidence and documentation. She pulled out her phone with trembling hands and returned to her position, capturing photos and a video through the cracked door. Her camera recorded Trevor kissing Vanessa, recorded their conversation about stupid Brielle and her money, recorded every detail she would need. 3 days earlier, Brielle had told Trevor she was going to Atlanta for a banking conference. She'd noticed the late nights, the changed passwords, the way he angled his phone away from her. She'd smelled unfamiliar perfume on his shirts. She'd seen the credit card charges at restaurants she'd never been to, at hotels in Chicago where they already lived. So she'd planned a test. She'd told him about the conference, bought plane tickets, packed her bags. She'd kissed him goodbye at the door and driven to the airport. But instead of boarding the plane, she'd driven to a hotel across town. She checked in under her maiden name, Thompson, and waited. She'd given him 2 days to prove her suspicions wrong. She'd hoped desperately that she was being paranoid, that the stress of her banking job had made her imagine things. But Trevor had failed her test spectacularly. She'd called the house landline that afternoon, and Vanessa had answered, breathless and giggly, clearly not expecting anyone to call. Orchestrated narrative momentum through betrayal, revelation, and character motivation. This is a strong start. I've established the devastating discovery, the betrayal by both husband and friend, the financial aspect, her trust fund, Brielle's strategic thinking, the test that revealed the truth. I need to continue with 900 more words for this chapter, maintaining the emotional impact while showing her immediate response. Let me continue the chapter. Now, standing in her own home like an intruder, Brielle documented everything. She recorded the expensive wine on her nightstand, wine from her private collection that Trevor knew she was saving. She photographed Vanessa's designer purse on Brielle's dresser, the one Brielle had admired just last month when they'd all gone to dinner together. Trevor, Brielle, Vanessa, and Vanessa's boyfriend Gerald. Or the man Brielle had thought was Vanessa's boyfriend. How long had this been going on? How many times had they been in her home, in her bed, laughing at her? Brielle's hands shook as she sent the photos and videos to her personal email, then to the cloud, then to a second backup email she'd created that morning. She would not lose this evidence. She would not give them any chance to deny what they'd done. She backed away from the bedroom, moving through her house like a ghost. Everything looked different now. The kitchen where she'd cooked Trevor's favorite meals. The living room where they'd hosted dinner parties. The home office where she'd helped him with his failing business consulting company, where she'd given him advice, where she'd encouraged him to pursue his dreams. Her trust fund. The inheritance from her grandmother who had died 2 years ago. Trevor wanted to invest it in a business with his mistress. While Brielle worked 60-hour weeks at the bank, supporting them both, he'd been planning to steal her family's legacy. Brielle grabbed her laptop from the home office, along with the folder containing their financial documents. She took the external hard drive where she backed up all their files. She took her grandmother's jewelry from the safe, the pieces Trevor didn't even know existed because he'd never cared enough to ask about her family heirlooms. She moved through the house methodically, her legal mind cataloging everything. She photographed the mail on the counter, showing bills addressed to her, proving this was her residence. She photographed the credit card statements showing charges she hadn't made. She photographed the joint bank account statements on Trevor's desk, the ones showing regular transfers to an account she didn't recognize. By the time she left, she had enough evidence to bury him. She'd learned from her brief time in law school before switching to finance that documentation was everything. She might not have finished her law degree, but she'd learned enough to protect herself. Brielle drove back to her hotel in a daze. The Chicago skyline blurred through her tears, the city lights reflecting off Lake Michigan like broken glass. She'd lived here for 5 years, had thought she was building a life. She'd met Trevor at a charity event, had been charmed by his ambition and confidence. He'd pursued her relentlessly, had seemed so perfect. Her mother had warned her he was too smooth, too practiced, but Brielle had been in love. What a fool she'd been. She parked in the hotel garage and sat in her car, letting herself cry for the first time. Not just for Trevor's betrayal, but for Vanessa's. They'd been friends since college. Vanessa had been a bridesmaid. She'd held Brielle's hand when Brielle's grandmother died. She'd brought soup when Brielle had the flu last winter. How could she have done this? But Brielle knew the answer. Money. Trevor's looks and charm. The thrill of deception. People betrayed each other for less every day. After an hour, Brielle's tears dried up. She felt empty, hollowed out, but also strangely clear-headed. She went up to her hotel room, ordered room service, and opened her laptop. She had work to do. First, she researched divorce attorneys, focusing on firms that specialized in high-asset divorces and financial fraud. She made a list of the top 5, noting their success rates and areas of expertise. Second, she reviewed her own finances. Her salary from the bank deposited into her personal account. Her trust fund, which was still in her name alone, thank God. The joint accounts she shared with Trevor, which held about $40,000, most of it from her paychecks. Third, she documented the timeline. When Trevor's behavior had changed. When the suspicious charges had started. When she'd first noticed Vanessa acting strange around her. She created a spreadsheet, color-coded and detailed, that would make any forensic accountant proud. By midnight, Brielle had a plan. She would return home in 4 days as scheduled. She would act normal, loving, trusting. Meanwhile, she would hire the best divorce attorney in Chicago, secure her assets, and investigate exactly how much of her money Trevor had already stolen. Then, when everything was in place, she would destroy him. Brielle Thompson had spent her whole life being nice, being accommodating, being the woman who made everyone else comfortable. She'd smoothed over conflicts at work, had managed Trevor's moods, had played the perfect wife and friend. That woman was gone. The woman who remained was going to make sure Trevor and Vanessa regretted ever thinking she was too naive to fight back. Brielle woke at 6 a.m., her mind already racing. She'd barely slept, her dreams filled with images of Trevor and Vanessa laughing in her bed. But she couldn't afford to fall apart. She had 4 days before her supposed return from Atlanta, and she needed to use every minute wisely. She showered, dressed in one of her sharp business suits, and headed to the first attorney's office on her list. She'd called at 7 a.m. and explained she had an urgent situation. The firm had agreed to see her at 9. Patricia Morrison was exactly what Brielle needed. A woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Her office overlooked Michigan Avenue, the walls lined with law degrees and certificates of achievement. "Tell me everything," Patricia said, settling into her chair with a legal pad. Brielle did. She showed the photos, played the videos, explained about the trust fund and the suspicious transfers. She walked through 5 years of marriage, pointing out the patterns she'd been too in love to see clearly. Patricia listened without interrupting. When Brielle finished, the attorney leaned back and steepled her fingers. "You have an excellent case," she said. "The evidence of infidelity is clear. The financial irregularities give us grounds for forensic investigation. Your trust fund, if it's solely in your name, is protected. But we need to move carefully. If your husband realizes he could try to hide assets or transfer money. That's why I want to wait until I'm sure everything is secure," Brielle said. "I'm supposed to be in Atlanta for 3 more days. You think I'm clueless? I want to use that time to gather more evidence and protect myself." Patricia nodded approvingly. "Smart. Here's what we'll do. I'll start the paperwork immediately. We'll file for divorce and request a restraining order on the joint accounts to prevent any transfers. We'll also file a civil suit for the misappropriation of funds if we find evidence he used your money without permission. I'll hire a forensic accountant to analyze your finances. In the meantime, you need to do several things." Brielle pulled out her own legal pad ready to take notes. "First, open a new bank account in your name only. Transfer your salary deposits there immediately. Second, change all your passwords, everything: email, bank accounts, social media. Third, secure any valuable personal property. Fourth, and this is important, do not confront him. Do not give him any indication you know. Continue to act normal when you return home. I can do that, Brielle said, though the thought of pretending to love Trevor made her stomach turn. Fifth, document everything. Every lie, every suspicious phone call, every unexplained absence. Keep a detailed log. If he's been stealing from you, we need to establish a pattern. He mentioned my trust fund in the video, Brielle said. He wants to use it for a business investment with Vanessa. Patricia's expression hardened. Then we need to ensure that trust fund is completely inaccessible to him. Who's the trustee? I am. My grandmother left it directly to me. It's in an account at the bank where I work. Good. That means he has no legal claim to it. But if you're married in Illinois, marital property gets divided. We need to prove he had fraudulent intent regarding your separate property. They spent 2 hours going through details. Brielle signed a retainer agreement and wrote a check from her personal account. When she left Patricia's office, she had a clear action plan and felt the first spark of hope since discovering the affair. Her next stop was the bank. Not the branch where she worked, but the main downtown office where the trust division operated. She met with her account manager and explained she needed to secure her trust fund completely. I'm going through a divorce, she said simply. I need this account locked down so only I can access it. No joint signatures, no authorized users, nothing. The manager, a woman named Gloria who'd known Brielle's grandmother, nodded sympathetically. I'm sorry to hear that, honey. Let me make sure everything is airtight. We'll require in-person verification with 2 forms of ID for any transactions. We'll remove any standing authorizations. And we'll set up alerts so you know immediately if anyone tries to access the account. Thank you, Brielle said, relief flooding through her. Can you also pull records of all transactions for the past 2 years? I need to verify there haven't been any irregular activities. Gloria's eyes sharpened. You think someone tried to access your grandmother's trust? I don't know. But I want to be certain. Within an hour, Brielle had the reports. She sat in a conference room and reviewed every transaction. To her relief, everything looked normal. Trevor hadn't managed to touch the trust yet. His plan had been to convince her to invest in his and Vanessa's business, but he hadn't gotten that far. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory. Never let a man control your money, Brielle. I learned that the hard way. This trust is yours and yours alone. Promise me you'll protect it. I promise, Grandma, Brielle whispered to the empty room. I'm protecting it. Next, she opened a new checking account and set up direct deposit for her salary. She transferred half the money from her joint account with Trevor to her new personal account. Legally, she was entitled to half and she wanted it secured before he could drain everything. She spent the afternoon in her hotel room with her laptop, changing every password she had. Email, bank accounts, social media, streaming services, everything. She set up 2-factor authentication on all her financial accounts. She created new security questions with answers Trevor could never guess. Then she started digging into their finances more deeply. She logged into their joint credit card accounts and downloaded 2 years of statements. She created a spreadsheet tracking every charge, categorizing them by type and date. The pattern that emerged made her sick. Regular charges at the same hotel twice a week for the past 8 months. Expensive dinners at romantic restaurants. Jewelry purchases from stores Brielle had never visited. Flowers delivered to addresses she didn't recognize. Trevor had been having this affair for at least 8 months, possibly longer. He'd been spending her money, on Vanessa the entire time. While Brielle worked late hours and missed social events to support their household, Trevor had been living a double life on her dime. She documented everything, creating a timeline with supporting evidence. She included screenshots of the credit card charges, bank statements, and her own photos from yesterday. She backed everything up to 3 different cloud services and emailed copies to Patricia. By evening, Brielle had assembled a case that would make any prosecutor proud. She had evidence of adultery, financial fraud, and breach of fiduciary duty. Trevor had used marital funds for his affair without her knowledge or consent. He'd planned to misappropriate her trust fund. He'd lied, cheated, and stolen. He was going to pay for all of it. Brielle ordered room service and ate mechanically, fueling her body while her mind planned the next steps. She had 2 more days before her scheduled return. She needed to use them wisely. Tomorrow she would meet with the forensic accountant Patricia recommended. She would search property records to see if Trevor and Vanessa had purchased anything together. She would investigate Vanessa's background and employment, looking for any additional leverage. She would build her case until it was absolutely unbreakable. Then she would go home, smile at her cheating husband, and wait for the perfect moment to strike. Brielle looked at herself in the hotel room mirror. Her eyes were red from crying, but her expression was determined. She'd spent 3 years trying to be the perfect wife for a man who didn't deserve her. She'd sacrificed her own career ambitions, had supported his failing business, had been patient when he was moody and distant. Never again. She was done being the nice girl, the understanding wife, the woman who put everyone else first. From now on, Brielle Thompson was going to put herself first. And anyone who tried to take advantage of her was going to learn a very expensive lesson. Brielle's phone rang as she was reviewing financial statements. Trevor's name flashed on the screen. Her heart jumped, but she forced herself to breathe slowly. She was supposed to be in Atlanta. She needed to sound normal, cheerful, unsuspecting. "Hey honey," she answered, proud that her voice sounded warm and natural. "Hey babe. How's the conference?" Trevor sounded relaxed, probably because he thought he was getting away with everything. "Exhausting but good. The sessions on international banking regulations are fascinating. How are things at home?" "Fine, just working on that new client proposal." "The house is quiet without you." The lie rolled off his tongue so easily. The house wasn't quiet. Vanessa was probably there right now. Brielle felt rage burn through her, but she kept her voice light. "I miss you too. The hotel is nice, but I can't wait to be home. Just 2 more days." "I can't wait either," Trevor said, and Brielle wondered if he practiced these lies or if they just came naturally. "Hey, I wanted to talk to you about something when you get back. That investment opportunity one mentioned? The business consulting expansion? I've been working on the numbers and I think it's really solid. I'd love to get your thoughts." There it was. The pitch for her trust fund. The plan to steal her grandmother's legacy. "Of course," Brielle said sweetly. "I'm always happy to look at investment opportunities. We can go through everything when I'm home." "Perfect. I think you're going to be excited about this. It's a real chance to build something bigger." "I'm looking forward to hearing more," Brielle said, and it wasn't entirely a lie. She was looking forward to hearing him pitch his fraudulent scheme so she could use it as evidence. They talked for a few more minutes about nothing important. Trevor mentioned having dinner with some colleagues, which Brielle knew meant Vanessa. She asked about his day, pretended to care about his answers, and told him she loved him before hanging up. Then she dropped the phone on the bed and pressed her hands to her face, breathing deeply. The performance was harder than she'd expected. Every word felt like glass in her throat. But she had to maintain the illusion for 2 more days. The next morning, Brielle met with Hugh Chin, the forensic accountant Patricia recommended. Hugh was a quiet man in his 40s who approached financial investigations like puzzles to be solved. "Your attorney sent over the preliminaries," he said, spreading out bank statements across his conference table. "I've already spotted several red flags. These regular hotel charges, the cash withdrawals, the transfers to an unknown account. Let me dig deeper and see what else I can find." "How long will it take?" Brielle asked. "For a preliminary report, 3 days. For a comprehensive analysis, 2 weeks. But I can tell you right now, if even half of what I'm seeing holds up, your husband has been systematically misappropriating marital funds for his personal use. That's financial fraud within the marriage." "Can we trace where the money went?" "I can trace anything," Hugh said with quiet confidence. "Bank transfers, cash withdrawals, credit card payments. If he spent it, I'll find out where and on what. I'll also look for hidden accounts, offshore transfers, anything he might be trying to conceal." Brielle left Hugh's office feeling more confident. Her team was assembling. Patricia for the legal strategy, Hugh for the financial investigation. She was building an army to take Trevor down. That afternoon she did something she'd been dreading. She called Vanessa. "Brielle?" Vanessa's voice was bright, fake, friendly. "How's Atlanta?" "Amazing," Brielle lied, matching Vanessa's fake enthusiasm. "The conference is fantastic. Hey, I wanted to see if you're free next week? Maybe we could do lunch and catch up? I feel like we haven't talked in forever." "Oh, that would be great," Vanessa said, and Brielle could hear the guilt underneath the cheerfulness. Good. She hoped Vanessa felt guilty. She hoped it kept her up at night. "I've been so busy with work, but I'd love to see you. How about Thursday?" "Perfect. I'll text you when I'm back." Brielle paused, then added the knife twist. "Trevor mentioned you might know about this investment opportunity he's excited about? Something with consulting?" There was a brief silence. Then Vanessa laughed, but it sounded forced. "Oh, Trevor talks about so many projects. You know how he is. We can chat about it at lunch." "Sounds good. See you next week." Brielle hung up and smiled grimly. Vanessa had just confirmed her involvement in Trevor's scheme. That phone call was recorded, added to the evidence pile. The day before her scheduled return, Brielle went apartment hunting. She couldn't stay in the house with Trevor, not when she knew the truth. She needed a place to go the moment she was ready to leave. She found a beautiful 2-bedroom condo in Lincoln Park, bright and modern with huge windows overlooking the park. It was more expensive than she'd planned, but she had her salary and her trust fund. She could afford it. "I need to move in within the week," she told the leasing agent. "Is that possible? If you can pay first month, last month and security deposit today, I can have it ready in 3 days." Brielle wrote the check without hesitation. She arranged for furniture delivery, set up utilities, and gave her new address to the post office for mail forwarding. By the time she left, she had a completely furnished apartment waiting for her, a safe place to land when she was ready to leave. That evening, she packed her hotel room carefully. She'd been gone for 4 days, playing the role of the traveling wife. Tomorrow she would return home and play the role of the trusting fool. Just a little longer. Just until everything was in place. She couldn't sleep that night. She kept thinking about walking back into her house, pretending she didn't know Trevor had violated their marriage bed. Pretending she didn't know Vanessa had betrayed their friendship. Pretending she was still the naive woman they thought they could manipulate. But she would do it. She would smile and kiss Trevor hello. She would ask about his week. She would listen to his lies about working late and missing her. She would play her part perfectly. Because unlike Trevor, Brielle understood strategy. She understood that sometimes you had to retreat to win the war. She understood that the best revenge wasn't hot and emotional. It was cold and calculated and absolutely devastating. Trevor thought he was the smart one, the strategic thinker, the business consultant who knew how to read people. But he'd made a critical error. He'd underestimated his wife. Brielle Thompson had a degree in finance, years of experience in banking, and the determination of a woman who'd been pushed too far. She'd learned from the best bankers in Chicago how to analyze risk, how to plan for contingencies, how to execute a strategy flawlessly. Trevor and Vanessa were about to find out what happened when you betrayed someone who actually knew how to fight back. The next morning, Brielle checked out of the hotel and drove to the airport. She parked in long-term parking, exactly where she'd told Trevor she would park. She collected her luggage, the same bag she'd packed 4 days ago. She looked exactly like someone returning from a business trip. Then she drove home, her heart pounding, ready to begin the most difficult performance of her life. Trevor was waiting at the door when Brielle arrived home, all smiles and open arms. "Welcome back, babe. I missed you so much." Brielle let him hug her, fighting every instinct that screamed at her to push him away. His cologne smelled the same. His arms felt the same. But everything was different now. "Missed you too," she said, stepping back to study his face. He looked relaxed, happy, confident. No guilt, no shame, no remorse. He truly believed he'd gotten away with everything. "How was Atlanta?" he asked, taking her luggage. "Productive. Lots of networking." Brielle walked into the house, seeing it with new eyes. Her home violated by his betrayal. She noticed fresh flowers on the dining table, probably bought to cover up evidence of Vanessa's presence. The bed was made with different sheets than the ones she'd seen in her photos. Trevor had been busy covering his tracks. "I made dinner reservations for tonight," Trevor said. "Figured you'd be tired from traveling and wouldn't want to cook." "That's thoughtful," Brielle said, though she knew the restaurant was probably one of his and Vanessa's regular spots. "Let me shower and change first." In the bathroom, Brielle locked the door and leaned against it, breathing slowly. She could do this. She just had to maintain the performance for a little longer. Over dinner, Trevor pitched his investment scheme. He'd created a whole presentation on his tablet, complete with financial projections and market analysis. It was impressive, Brielle had to admit. If she didn't know he planned to steal her money and run off with his mistress, she might have actually been convinced. "So what do you think?" Trevor asked, his eyes bright with enthusiasm. "With your trust fund as seed capital, we could really build something amazing. The consulting market is ready for disruption." "It's interesting," Brielle said carefully. "But I'd want to do my own due diligence. Look at the numbers, understand the market research, maybe talk to some industry experts." "Of course," Trevor said smoothly. "Take all the time you need. I just think this could be huge for us. A chance to build our own legacy." Our legacy. The words made Brielle want to laugh. He meant his legacy with Vanessa, built on Brielle's grandmother's money. "Who else is involved in the project?" Brielle asked innocently. "Do you have partners lined up?" "A few potential partners," Trevor said vaguely. "People with industry experience. I'll introduce you once we get further along." He wouldn't introduce her to Vanessa. That would be too risky. But Brielle already knew exactly who the partner with industry experience was. She'd done her research. Vanessa worked in corporate strategy at a mid-sized consulting firm. That was probably how she and Trevor had met, at some industry conference or networking event. Brielle smiled and nodded and asked intelligent questions, all while mentally calculating how much evidence this conversation would add to her case. Patricia would love this. Trevor was building the fraud case against himself with every word. That night, Trevor reached for her in bed. Brielle pleaded exhaustion from travel and turned away, her skin crawling at his touch. She heard him sigh, disappointed, but he didn't push. She lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, counting down the days until she could leave this house forever. The next morning, while Trevor was at work, Brielle started executing the next phase of her plan. She couldn't just divorce Trevor and walk away. She needed to build something for herself, something that would prove she didn't need him or his schemes or his lies. She opened her laptop and started researching the consulting industry, but not for Trevor's fake business. For her own real one. Brielle had spent 10 years in banking, working with high-net-worth clients on wealth management and financial planning. She'd helped dozens of women protect their assets, grow their investments, and achieve financial independence. She'd seen too many divorces where women lost everything because they didn't understand their own finances. What if she could build a business helping women like herself? Women facing divorce, women who needed to protect their assets, women who wanted to become financially independent but didn't know where to start? The idea grew as she researched. She could offer financial consulting, divorce planning, asset protection, business development support. She could help women take control of their financial futures. She could turn her own painful experience into something meaningful. By afternoon, Brielle had a business plan outlined. She'd call it Thompson Financial Consulting, using her maiden name to make a clean break from Trevor. She'd focus on 3 service areas: divorce financial planning, asset protection for high-net-worth women, and business development consulting for women entrepreneurs. She already had potential clients. Women she'd met through the bank, through charity events, through her social network. Women who'd mentioned struggling with finances, thinking about divorce, wanting to start businesses but feeling overwhelmed. Brielle spent the rest of the week building her plan. She researched licensing requirements, drafted service packages, created pricing structures. She designed a website using a template, professional but not flashy. She wrote content explaining her services, her background, her mission to help women achieve financial independence. She reached out to former colleagues, mentors, and clients, carefully feeling out their interest in her potential new venture. The response was overwhelmingly positive. "Brielle, I would absolutely refer clients to you," said Margaret, her former manager at the bank. "We have so many women coming in during divorces, completely lost about their finances. They need someone who specializes in that transition." "I've been thinking about starting a consulting practice for women in finance," said Tanya, a friend from business school. "If you're serious about this, I'd love to discuss partnering. We could build something really special." Within a week, Brielle had verbal commitments from 3 potential clients and 2 possible business partners. She had a website ready to launch, business cards designed, and a pitch deck prepared. She also had office space picked out. A small suite in a professional building in the Loop, Chicago's business district. Bright, modern, affordable. She could move in within 30 days. All she needed was the right moment to launch everything. To file for divorce, move out, and start her new business simultaneously. One clean break, no looking back. Patricia called with an update on the forensic investigation. "Hugh found something interesting," the attorney said. "Your husband has been transferring money to an LLC called Apex Consulting Partners. The LLC was formed 6 months ago with 2 members, Trevor Thompson and Vanessa Cole. So they already started a company together?" Brielle's hands clenched around her phone. "Yes. And they've been using marital funds to capitalize it. Trevor transferred $20,000 from your joint account without your authorization. That's embezzlement within a marriage, and it strengthens our case significantly. Can we freeze the LLC? Once we file for divorce, yes. We can request an injunction preventing any further transfers or business activities pending the divorce settlement. We can also demand repayment of the marital funds used to start the company." "Do it," Brielle said. "I want him to lose everything." "We'll need to time this carefully," Patricia said. "If we move too soon, he might try to hide more assets. But if we wait too long, he could drain your accounts. I think we're almost ready, but let's give Hugh another week to complete his full investigation. Then we'll file everything at once and hit Trevor with the full force of the law." Brielle agreed. One more week of pretending. One more week of playing the fool. Then she would burn Trevor's world to the ground. That evening, Brielle had lunch with Vanessa as planned. They met at a trendy restaurant in River North, all exposed brick and Edison bulbs. Vanessa arrived late looking nervous. "Sorry," she said, sliding into the booth. "Work has been crazy." "No problem," Brielle said warmly, studying the woman who'd betrayed her. Vanessa looked good, she had to admit. Stylish haircut, expensive clothes, designer purse. All purchased with money meant for her and Trevor's business, no doubt. They ordered salads and made small talk. Vanessa kept glancing at her phone, distracted. Guilty conscience, Brielle hoped. "So how are things with Gerald?" Brielle asked innocently. Gerald was Vanessa's supposed boyfriend, the man she'd been dating for 2 years. Vanessa's face tightened. "We actually broke up a few months ago. It wasn't working out." "Oh no, I'm so sorry," Brielle said, though she wasn't surprised. "Hard to maintain a relationship when you were sleeping with your business partner's wife. Are you seeing anyone new?" "Not really. I'm focused on work right now. Actually, I'm starting a new business venture, which is exciting but stressful." "That's wonderful," Brielle said. "What kind of business?" Vanessa hesitated. "Consulting. Corporate strategy and business development. It's early stages still." "Do you have partners?" Brielle pressed. "Just one. Someone I've been working with on strategy." Vanessa wouldn't meet Brielle's eyes. "That's so exciting. Trevor mentioned he's thinking about expanding his consulting work too. Maybe you two should connect, share ideas." Vanessa's face went pale. "Maybe," she said weakly. Brielle smiled, enjoying Vanessa's discomfort. Let her squirm. Let her wonder if Brielle knew. Let her spend the next week terrified that her affair was about to be exposed. They finished lunch with Vanessa making excuses about getting back to work. Brielle hugged her goodbye, thinking about how satisfying it would be when Vanessa's entire life came crashing down. 1 week later, Brielle had everything in place. Her business was ready to launch. Her apartment was furnished and waiting. Her legal case was airtight. Hugh had completed his forensic investigation, documenting every dollar Trevor had stolen. Patricia had divorce papers drafted, along with the civil suit for fraud and embezzlement. All Brielle needed was the perfect moment to execute her plan, and she knew exactly when that would be. Trevor's company was hosting a major client event next Friday. A networking mixer at a downtown hotel, with all his colleagues and potential clients attending. Vanessa would be there too, since she worked in the same industry. Trevor had been excited about the event for weeks, seeing it as a chance to showcase his expertise and attract new business. He'd bought a new suit, practiced his pitch, invited Brielle to attend as his supportive wife. It would be the perfect setting for Brielle's revenge. Public, professional, utterly devastating. She would serve him the divorce papers in front of everyone. She would expose his affair with Vanessa. She would reveal the embezzlement and fraud. She would destroy his reputation and his business in one strategic strike. Then she would walk away and never look back. Brielle Thompson was done being the nice girl. It was time to be the woman who won. The hotel ballroom glittered with Chicago's business elite. Brielle stood beside Trevor, wearing a sleek navy dress and her grandmother's diamond earrings, playing the role of supportive wife one last time. Trevor worked the room confidently, introducing her to clients and colleagues, completely unaware that his entire world was about to collapse. Brielle spotted Vanessa across the room, wearing a red dress that was slightly too revealing for a professional event. She was talking to a group of men, laughing too loudly, clearly nervous. When her eyes met Brielle's, she looked away quickly. Patricia Morrison stood near the entrance, professional and sharp in a black suit. In her briefcase were divorce papers, civil suit documentation, and enough evidence to bury Trevor and Vanessa both. 2 process servers waited outside, ready to serve papers the moment Brielle gave the signal. Everything was in place. "Having fun?" Trevor asked, his hand on Brielle's lower back. "Absolutely," she said, smiling up at him. "This is a great event. You should be proud." "Thanks, babe. Hey, I want you to meet someone." He steered her toward a distinguished older man in an expensive suit. "This is Richard Pemberton, CEO of Midwest Capital Group. Richard, this is my wife Brielle." Brielle shook Richard's hand, noting his firm grip and assessing eyes. "Pleasure to meet you. Trevor speaks very highly of your firm." "The pleasure is mine," Richard said. "Trevor's been pitching me on a consulting partnership. Says he has some innovative approaches to business strategy." "Trevor is full of innovative approaches," Brielle said, and only she caught the double meaning. They chatted for a few minutes about the consulting industry, Midwest Capital's portfolio and market trends. Brielle held her own easily, drawing on her years in finance. Richard seemed impressed. You know, Brielle, with your background in banking and wealth management, you'd make an excellent consultant yourself. Have you ever considered starting your own practice? Trevor's hand tightened on her back. He didn't like anyone suggesting Brielle should pursue her own ambitions. Brielle's happy at the bank, he said smoothly. She has a great position there. Actually, Brielle said, meeting Richard's eyes, I've recently decided to start my own financial consulting firm. I'll be focusing on helping women with asset protection and divorce planning. Trevor's head swiveled toward her. What? Since when? Since I realized I wanted more control over my professional future, Brielle said calmly. I've been planning it for a few weeks. I just haven't had a chance to tell you yet. This was a lie. She'd been planning it for exactly 2 weeks. But watching Trevor's face go through confusion and anger was deeply satisfying. That's fantastic, Richard said, pulling out a business card. My daughter is going through a divorce right now and could use exactly that kind of guidance. Can I give her your contact information? I'd be honored, Brielle said, accepting his card and handing him one of her own freshly printed business cards. Thompson Financial Consulting. I officially launch next week. Trevor stared at her business card, his jaw tight. She could see him trying to process this information, trying to figure out what it meant for his plans to steal her trust fund. We need to talk, he said quietly, his grip on her arm almost painful. In a minute, Brielle said. First, there's something I need to take care of. She pulled her phone from her clutch and texted Patricia, now. Patricia nodded from across the room and stepped outside. Within minutes, she returned with 2 process servers. Trevor Thompson? One of them said, approaching with papers in hand. Trevor turned, confused. Yes. You've been served. The process server handed him a thick envelope. Divorce petition and civil suit for fraud and embezzlement. You're required to appear in court on the date specified. The color drained from Trevor's face. Around them, conversation stopped. People turned to stare. What the hell is this? Trevor demanded, ripping open the envelope. It's exactly what it says, Brielle said clearly, her voice carrying across the now silent ballroom. I'm divorcing you for adultery and suing you for stealing marital funds to start a business with your mistress. Gasps echoed through the room. Vanessa froze, her wine glass halfway to her lips. Brielle, this is insane, Trevor hissed, trying to keep his voice down. We need to discuss this privately. No, I don't think so, Brielle said. You conducted your affair publicly enough. You used our money publicly enough. You planned to steal my inheritance publicly enough. I think you deserve a public reckoning. She turned to address the room, projecting her voice like she'd learned in those college debate classes. For anyone who's interested, Trevor Thompson has been having an affair with Vanessa Cole for at least 8 months. They started a business together using $20,000 from our joint account without my knowledge or permission. They plan to steal my trust fund to expand their business. I have documented evidence of all of it. Vanessa pushed through the crowd, her face furious. You can't prove anything. You're just a bitter wife who can't handle that Trevor found someone better. Brielle pulled out her phone and played the video she'd recorded 2 weeks ago. Trevor and Vanessa's voices filled the ballroom, crystal clear. She actually believed you had that conference call? She's so trusting it's almost sad. When are you going to tell her? Once we get that investment capital from her trust fund next month. Vanessa's face went from red to white. Trevor looked like he might be sick. I can prove everything, Brielle said coldly. Hotels you visited on our credit card. Flowers you bought her with our money. The LLC you formed together. The transfers from our joint account. Every lie, every theft, every betrayal. I documented all of it. Richard Pemberton stepped forward, his face hard. Trevor, is this true? You embezzled marital funds for a business venture with your affair partner. Trevor's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. I'll take that as a yes, Richard said. Midwest Capital won't be doing business with you. We don't partner with thieves and liars. He turned to Brielle. But I would still like my daughter to contact you. She needs someone with your integrity in her corner. I'd be happy to help, Brielle said. One by one, other people approached Trevor, their faces disgusted. Business partners distancing themselves. Clients canceling meetings. Colleagues who'd respected him now looking at him like he was dirt. Vanessa tried to slink toward the exit, but the second process server cut her off. Vanessa Cole? You've been served. You're named as a defendant in the civil suit for your role in the embezzlement scheme. Vanessa grabbed the papers, her hands shaking. This is ridiculous. I didn't do anything wrong. You formed a company using stolen funds and planned to help Trevor defraud his wife, Patricia said, stepping forward. That makes you an accomplice to fraud. We'll see you in court. Brielle turned back to Trevor, who was still standing there like his world had shattered. Because it had. She'd made sure of that. The house is in my name, she said quietly, just for him. My grandmother gave us the down payment, remember? I'll be filing for full ownership as part of the divorce. You have 30 days to move out. Don't take anything that isn't yours. I've cataloged everything. Brielle, please, Trevor said, his voice breaking. We can work this out. I made a mistake. I was stupid. But we can fix this. No, Brielle said simply. We can't. You didn't make a mistake, Trevor. You made a series of calculated choices over 8 months. You lied to me every single day. You stole from me. You violated our marriage in our own home. Those weren't mistakes. That was who you chose to be. I love you, he tried. Brielle laughed, the sound bitter. You love my money. You love having someone to manage your life while you play around. You don't know the first thing about loving me. She turned to Patricia. I'm done here. Let's go. As they walked toward the exit, Brielle heard Trevor calling her name, pleading. She didn't look back. She'd spent 2 weeks looking back, remembering the good times, wondering if she could forgive him. But she was done with that now. Patricia drove Brielle to her new apartment, the one Trevor didn't know existed. Brielle's belongings had been moved in over the past week, everything she cared about rescued from the house before Trevor even knew she was leaving. That was perfect, Patricia said, smiling. You destroyed him. He destroyed himself, Brielle corrected. I just made sure everyone knew about it. In her new living room with boxes still unpacked and her whole life ahead of her, Brielle finally let herself breathe. She'd done it. She'd escaped. She'd won. Her phone buzzed with a text from Margaret at the bank. Just heard what happened. You're a legend. Call me Monday. I have 3 referrals for your new business. Then another text from Tanya. You did it. Coffee tomorrow? Let's talk about that partnership for real. And one from Richard Pemberton. My daughter called. She wants to meet with you next week. Also, I mentioned your firm to several colleagues. Expect calls. Brielle smiled, tears streaming down her face. Happy tears this time. Relieved tears. Triumphant tears. She'd lost a husband tonight. But she'd gained herself back. And she was going to build something amazing from the ashes. The divorce proceedings were exactly as ugly as Brielle had anticipated. Trevor hired an aggressive attorney who argued that Brielle's trust fund should be considered marital property. They claimed she'd led him to believe they would invest it together in business ventures. They argued the $20,000 he'd transferred was a legitimate business expense. Patricia demolished every argument. Mrs. Thompson's trust fund was inherited property, kept in a separate account, never commingled with marital funds, Patricia stated during the first hearing. Mr. Thompson has no legal claim to it. Furthermore, the transfer of $20,000 from the joint account was made without Mrs. Thompson's knowledge or consent to capitalize an LLC formed with his affair partner. That's not a business expense. That's embezzlement. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s named Judge Williams, looked over her reading glasses at Trevor. Mr. Thompson, did you inform your wife before transferring funds from your joint account to start a business with Ms. Cole? Trevor's attorney whispered to him urgently. Trevor cleared his throat. I intended to tell her. It was going to be a surprise. A $20,000 surprise involving your affair partner? Judge Williams raised an eyebrow. That strains credibility. Motion to protect the trust fund is granted. The LLC assets are frozen pending resolution of the civil suit. Trevor's face went red. Beside him, his attorney looked frustrated. Outside the courthouse, Brielle felt the first real rush of victory. Her trust fund was safe. Trevor couldn't touch it. His business with Vanessa was frozen, unable to operate or access the funds he'd stolen. But the battle wasn't over. Trevor fought the asset division viciously. He claimed half the house value, half of Brielle's retirement accounts, half of everything. His attorney painted Brielle as a cold, vengeful woman who'd abandoned her marriage without trying to work things out. Brielle's depositions were grueling. Trevor's attorney tried to make her seem calculating and unfeeling. Mrs. Thompson, isn't it true that you planned this divorce in secret for 2 weeks without ever confronting your husband? I gathered evidence of his crimes, yes, Brielle responded calmly. Just as any reasonable person would do when they discover fraud and adultery. But you never gave him a chance to explain, to make amends? You don't make amends for 8 months of systematic lying and stealing. Brielle said. You face the consequences. Patricia objected repeatedly, but the attorney kept pushing. He tried to introduce evidence that Brielle had been cold and distant during their marriage, that she'd prioritized work over Trevor, that she'd refused to invest in his business ideas. Because his business ideas were schemes to steal my money, Brielle said flatly. The evidence proves that. When Trevor gave his deposition, Patricia tore him apart. Mr. Thompson, how many times did you commit adultery in the marital home? I don't remember exact numbers. More than 10 times? Probably. More than 20? Trevor shifted uncomfortably. I don't know. You don't know how many times you violated your marriage vows in your wife's own bed? Patricia's voice was sharp. Let me refresh your memory. We have credit card records showing hotel visits twice a week for 8 months. That's approximately 64 instances. Does that sound right? Trevor's attorney objected, but the damage was done. And the $20,000 you transferred to Apex Consulting Partners. Did you have your wife's permission to do that? We discussed investing in business opportunities. Did you specifically tell her you were transferring $20,000 to a company co-owned with your mistress? No. Did you tell her you'd formed an LLC with Vanessa Cole? No. Did you tell her anything truthful about where that money was going? No. Patricia sat back. No further questions. The civil suit against Trevor and Vanessa proceeded separately. Hugh Chen's forensic investigation had uncovered even more than Brielle had known. Trevor had been siphoning money from their joint account for over a year, in small amounts that Brielle hadn't noticed while she was working 60-hour weeks. In total, he'd stolen nearly $35,000. Not just for the LLC but for his affair. Hotels, dinners, gifts, trips with Vanessa while telling Brielle he was at business conferences. Vanessa claimed she'd had no idea the money was marital funds. Trevor told me he had investor backing, she insisted during her deposition. I didn't know the money came from his wife. But you knew he was married? Patricia pressed. Yes. And you knew you were having an affair with him? That's not relevant to the financial. It's completely relevant. You knowingly entered into a business partnership with a married man you were sleeping with, using funds you never questioned the source of. That demonstrates a pattern of poor judgment and ethical violations that go to the heart of this case. Vanessa's attorney objected, but again the damage was done. The judge saw through Vanessa's claims of innocence. While the legal battles raged, Brielle focused on building her business. Thompson Financial Consulting launched officially, and the response was overwhelming. Richard Pemberton's daughter became her first major client, a high-profile divorce that attracted media attention. Brielle Thompson saved my financial life, the woman told Chicago Tribune. I thought I'd lose everything in my divorce. She showed me how to protect my assets, document everything, and fight for what was rightfully mine. Every woman going through this needs someone like her. The article brought in 20 new client inquiries in 1 week. Brielle hired Tanya as a partner, and together they brought on 2 associate consultants and an administrative assistant. Within 2 months they had 15 active clients and a waiting list. Brielle spoke at women's business conferences, financial planning seminars, and divorce recovery workshops. She wrote articles for financial websites about asset protection and financial independence. Her reputation grew rapidly as the consultant who turned her own divorce into a masterclass in strategic financial planning. Meanwhile, Trevor's world crumbled. His consulting business lost clients after the public scandal. Partners distanced themselves. His professional reputation was destroyed. He was forced to take a job at a mid-level firm, a huge step down from the independent consultant role he'd been building. Vanessa fared even worse. She was fired from her corporate strategy position after the lawsuit became public. Her company didn't want the negative publicity of employing someone involved in fraud allegations. She struggled to find new work, her name now associated with the scandal. Brielle heard through mutual friends that Trevor and Vanessa's relationship had imploded. Apparently, when the money ran out and the legal troubles began, their love affair had revealed itself to be exactly what Brielle had known it was. A shallow connection built on deception and greed. 4 months after filing for divorce, the final settlement hearing arrived. Brielle sat beside Patricia, calm and composed, while Trevor looked worn and defeated across the aisle. Judge Williams reviewed the evidence, the forensic reports, the depositions, all of it. Then she delivered her ruling. In the matter of Thompson versus Thompson, I find that Mr. Thompson engaged in fraud, adultery, and misappropriation of marital funds. Mrs. Thompson is awarded the marital home in full, her trust fund remains separate property, and Mr. Thompson is ordered to repay $35,000 in stolen marital funds plus interest. The retirement accounts will be divided with a 60-40 split in Mrs. Thompson's favor, given Mr. Thompson's financial misconduct. Trevor's face went white. He'd lost almost everything. Furthermore, Judge Williams continued, in the civil matter of Thompson versus Thompson and Cole, I find the defendants liable for fraud and breach of fiduciary duty. They are jointly ordered to pay damages of $50,000 to Mrs. Thompson, representing the value of marital funds misappropriated plus punitive damages. Vanessa gasped. That was more than the LLC had ever held. She and Trevor would have to pay out of pocket. Mr. Thompson, you will have 60 days to vacate the marital home and make arrangements to pay the ordered damages. This court is adjourned. Brielle stood, shaking Patricia's hand. They'd won. Completely, devastatingly, thoroughly. Trevor tried to approach her in the hallway. Brielle, please. I'm sorry. I know I messed up. Can we just talk? My attorney will contact yours about the payment schedule, Brielle said without stopping. Don't contact me again. Brielle, I lost everything. I have nothing left. She turned, finally looking at him. Really looking at him. He looked older, tired, broken. She felt nothing. No satisfaction in his suffering, no pity, no anger. Just emptiness where he used to be. You lost what you stole, Trevor. What you lied for. What you betrayed me to keep. That's not everything. That's just the consequences of your choices. She walked away, Patricia beside her, and didn't look back. Outside, Chicago's spring sunshine felt like a blessing. Brielle tilted her face up to it, breathing deeply. You okay? Patricia asked. I'm perfect, Brielle said. And she meant it. 3 months after the divorce was finalized, Brielle stood in her new office suite, watching her team prepare for their first big client presentation. Thompson Financial Consulting had grown from a 2-person operation to a firm with 8 employees, occupying a full floor in a modern building overlooking the Chicago River. The Riverside Foundation presentation is ready, Tanya said, handing Brielle a tablet with the slide deck. I think they're going to love our proposal. The Riverside Foundation was one of Chicago's largest women's charities, and they'd approached Thompson Financial about developing a financial literacy program for women leaving domestic violence situations. It was exactly the kind of meaningful work Brielle had dreamed about when she started the company. This looks fantastic, Brielle said, scrolling through the presentation. You included the partnership with the Legal Aid Society? And the community college. We can offer free classes on budgeting, credit repair, and financial planning, plus one-on-one consulting for women going through divorce or starting businesses. Brielle smiled. 6 months ago, she'd been crying in a hotel room, planning her escape from a cheating husband. Now she was building something that would help hundreds of women avoid the same pain. Her phone buzzed with a text from Margaret. Lunch today? Have a huge referral for you. Brielle confirmed and spent the morning reviewing client files. Her practice had evolved beyond just divorce consulting. She now worked with women starting businesses, women planning for retirement, women who'd inherited wealth and needed guidance on managing it. Each client represented a woman taking control of her financial future. At lunch, Margaret greeted her with a huge smile. You look amazing. Business must be going well. Better than I imagined, Brielle admitted. We're hiring 2 more consultants next month just to keep up with demand. I'm not surprised. You're changing lives, Brielle. Speaking of which, I have a friend whose daughter is going through a nightmare divorce. Her husband controlled everything, she doesn't even know what assets they have. Can you help? Absolutely. Have her call my office. We'll set up a consultation. They ordered salads and caught up on industry gossip. Brielle learned that Trevor had moved to Milwaukee, taking a job at a small consulting firm. Vanessa had apparently left Chicago entirely, relocating to Seattle to escape the scandal. Good riddance, Margaret said. They deserved what they got. Brielle shrugged. I don't even think about them anymore. They're just gone. Part of an old life I don't live anymore. And it was true. Brielle rarely thought about Trevor or Vanessa. When she did, it was with detachment, like remembering characters from a book she'd read years ago. They'd hurt her. Yes, but they'd also freed her. Their betrayal had pushed her to build something she never would have created otherwise. That afternoon, Brielle spoke at a women's business conference downtown. The room was packed, nearly 200 women eager to hear about financial empowerment and business development. 6 months ago, I discovered my husband had been stealing from me to fund a business with his mistress. Brielle began, and the room went silent. I could have fallen apart. I could have been destroyed by that betrayal. Instead, I gathered evidence, hired a great attorney, and took back control of my life. She walked them through her journey, the planning, the legal strategy, the decision to start her own business. She emphasized documentation, professional support, and strategic thinking over emotional reactions. Revenge isn't about hurting the people who hurt you, she said. It's about building something so successful, so fulfilling, that their betrayal becomes the best thing that ever happened to you. It's about proving you never needed them in the first place. The applause was thunderous. Women lined up afterward to talk to her, to share their own stories, to ask for business cards. "You're an inspiration," one woman said, tears in her eyes. "My husband left me last year and I've been so lost. But hearing you speak, I realize I can build something too. I can be strong too." "You absolutely can," Brielle said, squeezing her hand. "And I'm here if you need help." Driving home that evening, Brielle reflected on how far she'd come. She'd sold the house, the one she'd won in the divorce, because she didn't want to live with those memories. Instead, she'd bought a beautiful condo in a modern high-rise, all clean lines and huge windows with city views. She'd decorated it exactly how she wanted, with bright colors and contemporary art and no compromises for anyone else's taste. Her social life had transformed too. She'd cut out the friends who'd known about Trevor and Vanessa's affair and stayed silent. She'd built a new circle of women who supported each other, who celebrated each other's successes, who showed up when things got hard. And she'd started dating again casually. Nothing serious, just dinners and concerts and enjoying male company without the pressure of commitment. She was learning what she actually wanted in a partner, rather than settling for what seemed acceptable. Her phone rang as she pulled into her parking garage. An unknown number. "This is Brielle Thompson." "Miss Thompson, this is Cameron Hayes. We met briefly at the business conference today. I'm a commercial real estate developer, and I wondered if you might have time for coffee this week? I have a business proposition I'd like to discuss." Brielle remembered him vaguely, tall, well-dressed, had asked an intelligent question during the Q&A. "What kind of proposition?" she asked cautiously. "I'm developing a mixed-use property in Lincoln Park. Retail on the first floor, offices above. I'd like to talk to you about being an anchor tenant. I think Thompson Financial Consulting would be perfect for the space, and I'd offer very favorable terms. Business, not personal." Brielle relaxed. "I'd be interested in hearing more. Thursday afternoon? Perfect. I'll send you the address." They confirmed the details and hung up. Brielle smiled as she rode the elevator up to her condo. 6 months ago, she couldn't have imagined this life. Her own thriving business, financial independence, respect in her industry, opportunities coming from every direction. She'd won more than a divorce settlement. She'd won herself back. That weekend, Brielle visited her mother in the suburbs. They sat on the back porch, drinking wine and watching the sunset. "I'm proud of you, baby," her mother said. "I know I worried when you married Trevor. Something about him always seemed off to me. But look at you now. You took something terrible and turned it into triumph." "I learned from the best," Brielle said, touching her mother's hand. "You raised me to be strong, to never depend on a man for my security. I forgot that for a while. But I remembered. Your grandmother would be so proud too. That trust fund she left you, she always said it was to keep you free. She knew what it was like to be trapped by financial dependence. She wanted you to always have choices." "I think about her every day," Brielle said. "When I help clients protect their assets, when I teach women about financial independence, I feel like I'm honoring her legacy." They sat in comfortable silence as darkness fell. Brielle's phone buzzed with an email notification. She glanced at it and smiled. "What is it?" her mother asked. "Forbes wants to interview me for an article about women entrepreneurs. They're doing a feature on businesses that grew out of personal adversity." Her mother beamed. "That's wonderful." "It really is," Brielle said softly. "A year ago I was crying in a hotel room, feeling like my world had ended. Now I'm being featured in Forbes. Life is strange." "Life rewards those who fight for themselves," her mother said. "You fought, baby. And you won." The Forbes article came out 3 months later, titled From Betrayal to Empire, How Brielle Thompson Built a Financial Consulting Powerhouse. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Brielle's phone rang constantly with interview requests, speaking invitations and client inquiries. National media picked up the story. She appeared on morning shows, business podcasts, and financial news programs, sharing her journey and expertise. "The question I get asked most," Brielle told an interviewer on a Chicago morning show, "is whether I regret my marriage to Trevor. And honestly, I don't. That experience taught me what I was capable of. It pushed me to build something meaningful. Sometimes we need to hit rock bottom to find our true strength. The interviewer leaned forward. What would you say to women who are in similar situations? Who suspect betrayal but are afraid to face it? Document everything, Brielle said firmly. Trust your instincts. Something feels wrong, investigate. And remember that leaving is not failure. Staying in a situation where you're being betrayed and stolen from, that's the real failure. You deserve better and you're strong enough to build it. Thompson Financial Consulting expanded again. Brielle opened a second office in Milwaukee and began developing online courses for women who couldn't afford one-on-one consulting. The courses covered basic financial literacy, divorce planning, asset protection, and business development. I want to reach women everywhere, Brielle explained to Tanya as they planned the curriculum. Not just those who can pay premium consulting fees. Every woman deserves financial knowledge. The online courses launched in the fall and immediately attracted thousands of enrollments. Women from across the country shared testimonials about how the courses had empowered them to take control of their finances, leave bad situations, and start businesses. Brielle hired a team to manage the online education platform, including video producers and curriculum developers. What had started as a small consulting practice was becoming a comprehensive financial empowerment company. She also started writing a book. Not a memoir exactly, but a practical guide for women navigating divorce and financial independence. Publishers had been reaching out since the Forbes article, offering substantial advances. Brielle chose a publisher that specialized in women's empowerment and business books. She spent evenings and weekends writing, pouring her experience and expertise into chapters about asset protection, evidence documentation, legal strategy, and building a new life after betrayal. When No Longer Works, A Woman's Guide to Protecting Your Assets and Building Financial Independence, became her working title. Her editor loved it. Meanwhile, her coffee meeting with Cameron Hayes had turned into something unexpected. He'd offered her excellent terms on office space in his new development, and she toured the property with genuine interest. The space was perfect, modern, well-lit in a growing neighborhood. But beyond the business deal, Brielle found herself enjoying Cameron's company. He was different from Trevor in every way that mattered. Where Trevor had been charming but shallow, Cameron was thoughtful and genuine. Where Trevor had seen Brielle's success as threatening, Cameron celebrated it. They started meeting for coffee regularly, talking about business and life. Cameron shared his own story, a divorce 5 years ago, an ex-wife who'd left him when his first development project failed, teaching him hard lessons about character and resilience. I spent 2 years rebuilding, he said over coffee one morning. Not just my business but myself. I had to learn what I actually wanted versus what I thought I should want. It sounds like you went through something similar. Exactly that, Brielle agreed. Trevor was who I thought I should marry. Successful, ambitious, charismatic. But he wasn't who I needed. I needed someone who would support my ambitions, not try to steal from them. Cameron smiled. Well, I think your ambitions are incredible. What you've built in less than a year is remarkable. Their friendship slowly deepened into something more. Cameron attended Brielle's speaking events, cheering from the audience. Brielle toured Cameron's development projects, offering feedback on design and market positioning. They went to dinners, concerts, gallery openings. But Brielle was careful. She wasn't ready to rush into anything. She'd learned the hard way what happened when you trusted too quickly. Cameron seemed to understand. I'm not going anywhere, he said when she explained she wanted to take things slowly. I respect that you need time. I'm happy to just enjoy your company and see where this goes. His patience and respect meant everything. This was what a healthy relationship looked like, Brielle realized. Mutual respect, shared values, genuine support for each other's goals. 6 months after the Forbes article, Thompson Financial Consulting celebrated its first anniversary. Brielle hosted a party at a rooftop venue, inviting clients, partners, employees, and supporters. The event was packed with successful, powerful women who'd helped build the company or been helped by it. Patricia Morrison gave a toast. 1 year ago, Brielle Thompson walked into my office with evidence of betrayal and a plan for justice. Today, she stands here as the founder of one of Chicago's fastest-growing financial consulting firms. She turned pain into purpose, and in doing so, she's helping thousands of women do the same. Brielle, you're an inspiration to all of us. The room erupted in applause. Brielle felt tears prick her eyes as she looked around at the community she'd built. These were her people. Women who'd survived betrayal, built businesses, fought for their independence. Women who supported each other instead of tearing each other down. Thank you all, Brielle said when the room quieted. A year ago I was at my lowest point. I discovered my husband's betrayal and I felt broken. But I realized something important. Being broken isn't the same as being defeated. I could stay broken or I could use those broken pieces to build something new. She paused, gathering her thoughts. Every woman in this room has her own story of survival. Maybe it's divorce, maybe it's job loss, maybe it's financial struggle. But we're all here because we refused to stay victims. We became victors. And now we help other women do the same. To the next year, she raised her glass, and to every woman finding her strength. To strength, the room echoed. Later, as the party wound down, Cameron found Brielle on the rooftop terrace, looking out over the Chicago skyline. Impressive event, he said, standing beside her. You should be very proud. I am, Brielle said. A year ago I couldn't have imagined this. Any of this. You built something remarkable from a terrible situation. That takes real strength. Brielle turned to face him. Can I ask you something? Why are you interested in me? I mean, I know I have a successful business now, but I also come with baggage. A messy public divorce, an ex-husband who stole from me, trust issues. Cameron smiled gently. You want to know why I see that as a positive, not a negative? Yes. Because you didn't let it destroy you. You documented, strategized, and fought back intelligently. You turned trauma into a thriving business that helps others. You're honest about your trust issues instead of pretending they don't exist. That's not baggage, Brielle. That's wisdom earned the hard way. Brielle felt her heart expand. This was what she'd been missing with Trevor. Someone who saw her strength instead of feeling threatened by it. Someone who valued her growth instead of trying to limit it. I'm glad you see it that way, she said softly. I see you, Cameron said. The real you. Strong, strategic, compassionate, ambitious. I like who you are, including the parts that were forged in pain. Brielle kissed him then, there on the rooftop under the Chicago stars. It felt like a beginning, not a repeat of past mistakes but something genuinely new. When she pulled back, Cameron was smiling. I've been wanting to do that for months. I needed to be ready, Brielle said. I needed to know I was kissing you for the right reasons. Not because I was lonely or trying to prove something, but because I genuinely want this. And do you? Genuinely want this? I do, Brielle said. I really do. They stayed on the rooftop talking until late, making plans for dinner dates and weekend trips, building something real and honest and healthy. Brielle drove home that night feeling completely content. She had a business she loved, friends who supported her, a family who was proud of her, and now, maybe, the beginning of something romantic with someone who actually deserved her. Trevor had tried to destroy her. Instead, he'd freed her to become the person she was always meant to be. Thompson Financial Consulting's second year brought even more success. Brielle's book was published to excellent reviews and became a bestseller in the business and self-help categories. She went on a book tour, speaking at bookstores and conferences across the country, meeting women whose lives her story had touched. Your book saved my marriage, one woman told her at a signing in Boston. I was going to ignore my suspicions about my husband's spending. But reading your chapter on documentation gave me the courage to investigate. Turns out he was gambling. We're in counseling now, working through it, but if I hadn't caught it early, we could have lost everything. I'm so glad, Brielle said warmly. That's exactly why I wrote it. To help women protect themselves before it's too late. The success of the book led to more opportunities. A major financial network approached Brielle about hosting a show about financial empowerment for women. A tech company wanted to partner on developing a financial planning app specifically for women going through life transitions. Brielle's life had become busier than ever, but she loved every minute of it. She was making a real difference, helping women take control of their financial futures. Her relationship with Cameron deepened throughout the year. He was everything Trevor hadn't been, supportive, honest, secure in himself. When Brielle got the book deal, Cameron celebrated with champagne and genuine joy. When she had to travel for speaking engagements, he didn't sulk or complain, he just asked what airport she needed picked up from and made dinner reservations for when she returned. This is how it's supposed to feel, Brielle told Tanya over lunch one day. Easy. Supportive. Like we're on the same team. That's because you are on the same team, Tanya said. You're both secure, successful people who don't need to compete or control each other. You complement each other. Brielle had met Cameron's family, his mother, sister, and teenage nephew. They were warm and welcoming, nothing like Trevor's family who'd always made Brielle feel like she wasn't quite good enough. Cameron's mother had pulled Brielle aside at a family dinner. I'm so glad Cameron found you, she said. After his divorce, I worried he'd never trust anyone again. But you two are good together. I can see how happy he is. I'm happy too, Brielle said honestly. He's a wonderful man. He is. And you're a wonderful woman. I read your book. What you survived and built, that's remarkable. Cameron needs someone strong like you. Someone who can stand beside him, not behind him. Brielle appreciated the acceptance more than she could say. Trevor's mother had always criticized her, suggesting she wasn't domestic enough, wasn't feminine enough, worked too hard. Cameron's family celebrated her exactly as she was. In the fall, Brielle expanded Thompson Financial Consulting again, opening offices in 3 more cities and launching a fellowship program to train new financial consultants specializing in women's financial empowerment. The fellowship attracted brilliant young women eager to help others while building their own careers. You're creating a movement, Patricia told her over drinks one evening. Not just a business, but a real shift in how women approach financial independence. That's the goal, Brielle said. I want women to see financial knowledge as power. I want them to protect themselves before they need protection. I want them to know they can survive betrayal and build something even better. Through all the success and growth, Brielle occasionally heard updates about Trevor. He was still in Milwaukee, still working at the small consulting firm. He'd never bounced back from the scandal and the financial judgment against him. Friends reported he'd gained weight, looked older, seemed defeated. Brielle felt no satisfaction in his suffering and no pity either. She felt nothing. He was simply irrelevant to her life now, a character in a story she'd moved past. Vanessa had apparently gotten married in Seattle to someone she'd met online. Brielle learned this from a mutual friend who seemed to expect some reaction. Brielle just shrugged. Good for her. I hope she's honest with her new husband about her past. Aren't you angry? She helped Trevor steal from you. I was angry, Brielle said truthfully. For months I was furious. But anger is exhausting and it doesn't change anything. I got my justice in court. I built my business. I moved on. Staying angry would just give them power they don't deserve. The friend looked impressed. You've really changed, Brielle. You're so much stronger than you were when you were with Trevor. I'm who I always was, Brielle corrected. I just forgot for a while. Trevor tried to make me smaller so he could feel bigger. But I'm done making myself small for anyone. As the holidays approached, Cameron started hinting about their future. Nothing overt, just comments about next year and long-term plans that included them both. Brielle found herself thinking about it too, imagining a life with Cameron that looked nothing like her marriage to Trevor. On New Year's Eve, Cameron took Brielle to dinner at an elegant restaurant overlooking Lake Michigan. The view was spectacular, the city lights reflecting off the dark water, fireworks planned for midnight. This has been an incredible year, Cameron said over dessert. Watching you build your business, publish your book, help all those women. I'm in awe of what you've accomplished. Thank you, Brielle said. You've been such a big part of it. Your support means everything. I want to be part of your next year too, Cameron said. And the year after that. And all the years after that. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Brielle's heart started racing. I know you've been married before, Cameron said, opening the box to reveal a stunning diamond ring. I know you have every reason to be cautious about commitment. But I also know that what we have is real and worth building on. Brielle Thompson, will you marry me? Brielle looked at the ring, then at Cameron's face. She saw patience, love, respect, and genuine partnership. This wasn't Trevor's practiced charm or manipulation. This was real. Yes, she said, tears streaming down her face. Yes, I'll marry you. Cameron slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her as the restaurant erupted in applause around them. Through the windows, fireworks exploded over the lake, marking the new year and new beginnings. I love you, Cameron said. Not despite your strength but because of it. You're an incredible woman and I can't wait to build a life with you. I love you too, Brielle said. Thank you for seeing me. For valuing what I bring. For being nothing like my ex-husband. Cameron laughed. That's the best compliment you could give me. They spent the rest of the evening planning their future. A small wedding, intimate and meaningful. Combining their lives while maintaining their individual careers and identities. Building something together based on equality and mutual respect. Brielle realized that Trevor's betrayal had been the best thing that could have happened to her. If he hadn't cheated, if she hadn't discovered it, she would still be stuck in that unfulfilling marriage, supporting his dreams while sacrificing her own. She would never have built Thompson Financial Consulting. She would never have helped thousands of women. She would never have met Cameron. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is actually the beginning of your best life. The wedding took place in the spring, Exactly 2 years after Brielle had discovered Trevor's affair. The symmetry wasn't lost on her. 2 years from her worst day to one of her best. They held the ceremony in a botanical garden, surrounded by blooming flowers and close family and friends. Only 50 guests, but each one meant something. Patricia Morrison served as Brielle's maid of honor, a symbol of the journey they'd taken together. Cameron's sister read a poem about growth and new beginnings. When Brielle walked down the aisle, she felt completely present and joyful. No doubts, no fears, just pure happiness. Cameron's face when he saw her made her tear up. He looked at her like she was the most beautiful, amazing woman in the world. The ceremony was short and heartfelt. They'd written their own vows. "Cameron," Brielle said, her voice steady and clear, "you taught me what partnership really means. You celebrate my success instead of feeling threatened by it. You support my ambitions instead of trying to control them. You see my strength as a gift, not a challenge. I promise to give you the same respect, support, and love you've shown me. I promise to build a life with you based on honesty and equality. And I promise never to let anyone make me feel small again, because you've shown me how it feels to be truly valued." Cameron's eyes were wet when he spoke his vows. "Brielle, watching you rise from betrayal to build an empire has been the privilege of my life. You're the strongest, most courageous person I know. I promise to always respect your independence and celebrate your achievements. I promise to be honest and transparent in all things. I promise to stand beside you, never in front of or behind you. And I promise that our marriage will be a partnership of equals, where both of us can be fully ourselves." When they kissed, the garden erupted in cheers. Brielle felt like she was floating, weightless with joy and possibility. The reception was perfect. Good food, great music, speeches that made everyone laugh and cry. Patricia toasted to "the strongest woman I've ever had the pleasure of representing, who turned a divorce into a destiny." Brielle's mother spoke about watching her daughter transform from a woman trying to please everyone into a woman who knew her own worth. "Brielle, you've made me so proud. Not because you're successful, though you are, but because you're authentically yourself. You refuse to be anything less than who you are, and that's the greatest success of all." At the end of the night, Brielle and Cameron stood on the garden terrace, looking at the stars. In the distance, the Chicago skyline glowed. "Thank you," Brielle said softly. "For what?" "For being patient with me. For understanding why I needed to move slowly. For never making me feel like my past was a burden." "Your past is part of what makes you amazing," Cameron said. "You could have stayed bitter and angry. Instead, you built something beautiful. That's who you are." They honeymooned in Greece, spending 2 weeks exploring ancient ruins and swimming in crystal-clear water. Brielle posted photos sparingly, not to make anyone jealous or prove anything, just to share her happiness with the people she cared about. When they returned to Chicago, work was waiting. Thompson Financial Consulting had grown to 12 offices nationwide and was preparing to expand internationally. The online courses had attracted over 10,000 students. The TV show was in development, with filming scheduled to start in 3 months. Brielle's book had been translated into 8 languages and was being used in women's studies courses at universities. She'd been invited to speak at the United Nations about financial empowerment for women in developing countries. "Sometimes I can't believe this is my life," Brielle told Cameron one morning as they got ready for work. 2 years ago I was crying in a hotel room. Now I'm speaking at the UN. "You earned every bit of it," Cameron said. "Through hard work and refusing to let betrayal define you." At the office, Tanya was waiting with news. "Forbes wants to do a follow-up article. 2 years later, From Betrayal to Empire Part 2. They want to highlight the expansion and the TV show." "Tell them yes," Brielle said. "I want women to see that you can rebuild completely. That the life you build after betrayal can be better than anything you had before." The interview took place in Brielle's corner office, with its view of the Chicago River and walls covered in awards and recognition. The journalist, a woman in her 40s, was clearly impressed. "You've built something remarkable," she said. "But I have to ask, do you ever regret the path that got you here? The betrayal, the public divorce, all of it?" Brielle considered the question seriously. "I regret that it happened the way it did. I regret trusting someone who didn't deserve it. But do I regret where it led me? Absolutely not. If Trevor hadn't betrayed me, I'd still be in an unfulfilling marriage, supporting his dreams while ignoring my own. I wouldn't have Thompson Financial Consulting. I wouldn't have helped thousands of women. I wouldn't have met my husband Cameron. So you're grateful for the betrayal?" "I'm grateful for what I learned from it. About my own strength, about what I deserve, about the kind of life I want to build. The betrayal was painful, but it was also clarifying. It showed me who I really was and what I was capable of. The article, when it came out, was titled Brielle Thompson's Empire of Empowerment: How One Woman Turned Betrayal into a Movement. It featured photos of Brielle's offices, her team, the women whose lives she'd changed. One quote became widely shared on social media: "The best revenge isn't destroying the person who hurt you. It's building a life so fulfilling, so successful, so genuine that their betrayal becomes irrelevant." Brielle received thousands of messages after the article published. Women sharing their own stories of betrayal and survival. Women thanking her for showing them a path forward. Women who'd used her book and courses to protect themselves and rebuild their lives. "You changed my life," one email said. "I was ready to stay in a marriage where my husband was stealing from me because I was afraid of being alone. Your story gave me courage to leave and protect my assets. I'm divorced now and I just started my own business. Thank you for showing me it was possible." Reading those messages, Brielle felt the full weight of what she'd built. It wasn't just a business. It was a movement, a community, a new way of thinking about female financial empowerment. On the 2-year anniversary of discovering Trevor's affair, Brielle did something she'd been planning for months. She established the Thompson Foundation for Women's Financial Independence, funded with a significant portion of her book proceeds and business profits. The foundation would provide free financial consulting for women leaving domestic violence situations, scholarships for women pursuing business education, and grants for women-owned businesses in underserved communities. "My grandmother left me a trust fund that gave me freedom and security," Brielle explained at the foundation's launch event. "I want to give that same gift to women who don't have family wealth. Every woman deserves the freedom that comes from financial independence." The foundation's first-year budget was $2 million. By year 5, Brielle planned to grow it to $10 million. She recruited board members who shared her vision: Patricia Morrison, several successful women entrepreneurs, leaders from women's charities. Cameron supported the foundation fully, even making his own significant donation and joining the board. "This is your legacy," he said, "turning pain into purpose for thousands of women. I'm honored to be part of it." That night, after the foundation launch party, Brielle and Cameron returned to their home, a beautiful brownstone they'd purchased together in Lincoln Park. They'd decorated it together, combining their styles, making joint decisions. It felt nothing like the house she'd shared with Trevor, where she'd always deferred to his preferences. "I have something for you," Cameron said, handing her a wrapped package. Inside was a framed photo from their wedding day, Brielle laughing with her head thrown back, pure joy on her face. Beneath it, Cameron had added a quote: "She turned her pain into power, her scars into strength, and built an empire of empowerment. This is what resilience looks like." "I wanted you to have a reminder," Cameron said, "of how far you've come, of what you've built, of who you are." Brielle hung the photo in her home office, where she could see it while working. Every time she looked at it, she remembered that young woman standing in her bedroom doorway 2 years ago, frozen with shock and pain. That woman had been hurt, but she hadn't been broken. She'd gathered evidence, hired professionals, fought strategically, and won completely. Then she'd built something meaningful from the ashes. Brielle Thompson had taken the worst betrayal of her life and transformed it into her greatest triumph. She'd helped thousands of women do the same. And she'd found genuine love with someone who valued her strength instead of fearing it. Trevor's betrayal had been devastating, but it had also been liberating. It had freed Brielle to become who she was always meant to be: a successful entrepreneur, a financial empowerment advocate, a woman who refused to be defined by anyone else's limitations. She'd won. Not just in court, not just financially, but in every way that mattered. She'd won back herself, and she'd used that self to build an empire. And the best part? She was just getting started.